Hi, everybody. How you all doing? My bad. Sorry about that. Real quick. Here's what I wanted to talk about. Okay. All right. Let's get it. Let's get into this. All right. So it seems like Republican Party is basically showing more of itself as just the same as the Democrats. Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, teamed up with a registered sex offender. Kirk decried the sexualization of kids at his pastor's summit. The founder of one of its sponsors was convicted of attempted coercion and enticement of a minor. Turning Point USA CEO Charlie Kirk is cheerleading the far-right boycott of Target over the retailer's Pride collection, which included trans-friendly youth apparel and other LGBTQ positive wear, for what Kirk decries as their support for grooming kids. Kirk's condemnation of the retailer coincided with Turning Point USA's second annual Pastor Summit in Nashville, Tennessee, this past week, where Kirk also denounced Target, telling a crowd of hundreds of religious leaders, "If you love God, you must hate evil." Yet in delivering these favored messages about morality and child welfare, Kirk had an old benefactor, a man whose criminal history opens up Turning Point USA to charges of hypocrisy. Rolling Stones has learned that one of Turning Point USA's summit's corporate sponsors is a Christian fashion company that is led by a registered sex offender, Sean Bergstrand, who served time in federal prison for attempted coercion and enticement from trying to persuade a minor female to engage in sexual activity. In a statement to Rolling Stone, Turning Point USA spokesman Andrew Colvett said that Turning Point USA Faith was not aware of this incident, but emphasized that as an exhibit sponsor, Bergstad was not a speaker, organizer, or professing doctrine from the stage. It doesn't matter. You guys are supposed to do a background check. Okay. One of the core tenets of the Christian faith is forgiveness rooted in repentance. After discussing the issue with him, we believe it was critical to bringing him to the faith. Colvett added, he doesn't hide from what happened. He instead posts his testimony online on his company website. Turning Point USA Faith will not toss away a repentant, decent person because of a mistake that happened over a decade ago, or because a left-wing outlet wants to write a hit piece on the amazing work our team is doing. Colvett included a reference to Colossians chapter 3, verse 13, a Bible verse that reads in part, "Forgive as the Lord forgave you." Today's conservative movement, nothing animates activists like the supposed liberal indoctrination of children. The religious right, in particular, espouse unhinged rhetoric about how youth are being groomed into trans and LGBTQ ideology by Luciferian leftists. Truth is, both sides are Luciferian. Riding this wave of populist anger, Kirk and Turning Point USA have made a hard pivot from the organization's stated aim of preaching free market economics to students to embrace the cause of Christian nationalism. That's hilarious. That is hilarious because you're already going against the Bible right here, because according to the Christian doctrine, the world is not your home. So what are you talking about Christian nationalism? And marshaling church leaders to the front lines of GOP politics. Okay. But like I said, I truly believe that, this is just like the Democrats, because Florida GOP was taking money from a known sex offender named Mark Foley. Okay. And there are plenty other creepy Republican senators that you could look up if you do some digging. At the Pastors Summit, Kirk responded to Rolling Stone's coverage of his group's new crusade. First of all, it's not my turning point. Kirk insisted of his organization. It's the Lord's turn. He added, I'm both a Christian and a nationalist, but most importantly, I'm a Christian. Okay. One of the sponsors, this is the same Turning Point USA that was caught on Twitter years ago with their following saying, F the N-words, If you can still find it on Twitter, where you could find students that belong to Turning Point USA that were making racial slurs online. If you can still find that, let me know. Second. Yeah, it's old. They don't have it anymore. They just don't. One of the sponsors for the summit, alongside firms like Patriot Mobile and American Christian Credit Union, is Right Side Up, a Christian lifestyle apparel company that sews tags reading BSITL, Be Strong in the Lord, into its shirts, t-shirts, and clothing. The company's website declares, we all have a life history, a life story, and it doesn't matter where we've been. It's where we are going that counts. The company's CEO, Bergstead, has a prison conviction in his life story. He's a registered sex offender in North Dakota. Designation in the state's registry indicates he will remain active until 2030. Bernstein was convicted in 2014 for an attempted coercion and enticement. The details of the criminal complaint are sealed, but a redacted indictment shows that Bernstein was originally charged with attempting to entice and coerce a minor female to engage in prostitution and sexual activity. A contemporaneous news report on Bergstein's arrest includes other disturbing allegations that do not appear in the federal court record. Okay. Bernstein quickly reached a plea deal that removed the mention of the prostitution. The criminal information in Bernstein's guilty plea states that in June and July of 2013, he did knowingly attempt to persuade, induce, entice, and coerce a minor female to engage in sexual activity. Okay. Bernstein did not respond to requests for comment, but his address on North Dakota's sex offender registry matches the registration address for Bernstein and Right Side Up in the corporate registry maintained by North Dakota's Secretary of State. Bernstein's photo on the offender registry also matches video of the apparel CEO from Right Side Up's website. Despite facing a maximum of 20 years in jail, Bernstein received a sentence of 1 year in prison and 5 years of supervised release. He was discharged from supervision more than a year early in 2018. In promotional videos for Right Side Up, Bernstein speaks obliquely of his life struggles. At one time in my life, I lost completely everything, he says, but he touts the apparel company as his way to get right with Jesus. God gives us second chances, third chances, fourth chances. He says it's up to us what we're going to do with it. Bernstein, associated with the Turning Point USA, was brought to Rolling Stone's attention by Matthew Brody, a professor at the University of North Georgia, who has also written about Turning Point USA's odd leap from economic to religious dogma. I'm all for second chances and paying your debt to society, even perhaps creating a brand based on how you overcame your own terrible decisions, Brody says, referring to Bergstrand. But for Turning Point and Charlie Kirk to highlight this particular person whose crime involved a child in attempted sexual acts while decrying groomers, sending mobs to stores who sell products they don't like is beyond hypocritical. It It's even more outrageous that this business was promoted to a group of pastors who likely had no idea of this person's history, he adds. I only hope Kirk practices what he preaches and takes responsibility. On Saturday night, Kirk responded to Rolling Stone's report, writing that he wanted to set the record straight in a post on Twitter, and added that he had never met Bergstedt. I'm told from the team that coordinates exhibitors that he's a nice person who did something wrong over a decade ago, and unlike Target, he repented, and the experience led him to his faith. Good for him. That's the gospel, Kirk wrote in part. Yeah, right. This is just a way to cover up what a huge mistake he did in not reading up on this person's background. Okay? That's how I see it here. Okay? He didn't do a background check. Okay? But this is the right. This is how they are. Both sides are hypocrites, and both sides are very much for the same disgusting acts. All right? All right. So, let's get into The Little Mermaid. Okay, let's get into that. Because honestly, I think this is something that there's a lesson to learn here. Okay? There really is. The real reason Little Mermaid bombed in Asia is not racism. Hollywood's cultural exports are falling due to a lack of innovation as it keeps recycling the same old IPs. This is basically it. The Hollywood press has been up in arms this week about Disney's live-action Little Mermaid performing poorly in East Asian countries such as China and South Korea. According to the Hollywood Reporter, the film grossed a mere $3.6 million in its first 10 days of release in China, and another $4.4 million through June 4th in Korea, which insiders cited by the site claim is due to casting of Black actress Halle Berry in the lead role. In essence, the implied reason why the movie is doing poorly is because the consumers are racist. And indeed, other sites did cite some pretty nasty remarks. But specific quotations mentioned by the Hollywood Reporter make a very American mistake of lumping East Asians together as though they were the same, because they only quote hateful comments from South Korea, not China. To be sure, it would be not surprising if some of these comments existed on Chinese social media, but they were not cited specifically. The reaction to this story has been about what you'd expect: Black people being angry at these countries and their people for what is allegedly out and out racism. It is very typical of American media to race bait and sow division among minorities, especially Black Americans and Americans of Asian descent, instead of promoting intersectional solidarity. But it also misses the obvious reason why this film and so many others from Hollywood of late haven't done well in Asia. For American media consumer, it is evident that the quality of cultural exports has fallen dramatically in recent years. This is not just some nostalgic yearning on my part, but a careful observation of the fact that Hollywood is not producing any new intellectual properties. They're not doing that. Okay? That's the problem. You're rehashing the same thing. For instance, how many more movies of Fast and the Furious are you going to do? Just like that. I mean, the same kind of twist, the same kind of plot line. Find something else. That's it. Make something new. but it is just regurgitating the same stories over and over again. It seems like we have a new Marvel movie every few months with the typical fan service of packing in as many superheroes as possible and then some Disney live action of a classic animated movie. Yeah, pretty much. They don't want to take the time to put out a movie that actually blood, sweat, and tears was put into it. Take the example of the live-action Mulan, which actually portrays a Chinese setting and is based on a Chinese fable, as was reported at the time of its release in 2020. This was one of Disney's worst-performing remakes in China. Chinese people didn't clamor to the theaters just to see a Chinese-American face as the lead character. In fact, they clearly have little regard for such shallow forms of representation and found the narrative lacking. Look at how the Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, performed in China too. The first movie in this series did well. However, many people rightly pointed out that the politics reflected in the movie were problematic. The main antagonist, Killmonger, reclaimed stolen African artifacts from what was portrayed as the British Museum and fought against the CIA, with one agent, a good character portrayed by a white man. Think about that. The bad guy is in a black-centric movie about Africa is actually the person who reflects the struggle of black folks around the world. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I got to give it to him, to this writer, because to me, right? Not to me, it's just the fact. I thought T'Challa was the good guy, right? But then when I started really thinking about this, I mean, Killmonger was really the hero. Okay, he reflected more of the struggle. He reflected what blacks were going through, American blacks actually, and blacks around the world, what they were going through, and the fact that he was fighting another black man when the real enemies were the Western powers that were subjugating Africa and subjugating blacks around the world. Okay. He has a good point here. He has an absolute good point. Okay. And I remember watching a TikTok video about that, and the black person in TikTok was explaining it perfectly well. The Avengers, right? Who are they fighting? Other world powers. Okay. Usually they are white, evil, like Nazis or some sort of terrorist organization that is for far-right Nazi beliefs. And then when it comes to Black Panther, he's fighting another black person who actually wants to fight against white supremacy, white corrupt Western powers. It's not about being woke here. I'm not trying to be woke. It's true. Fighting against white supremacy that is crippling African nations. You don't have them fighting against, white supremacist powers of the, let's say the Dutch or just saying, for an example, fighting, let's say back in the slave days, okay? Back in the, let's say, 1800s, fighting against, European and Portuguese slave traders. Okay? They don't have movies like that. Okay? Watching American entertainment these days, which is admittedly I rarely do, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Our films are the same cycle of boring and overdone intellectual properties. Anything novel is just watered down brain rot. Movies that portray the military and use military hardware have to have scripts approved by the Department of Defense. And our television, which I often watch during the National Football League season, is sponsored by pharmaceutical industry, the automobile industry, the defense sector, or Wall Street. It's no wonder our cultural exports are dying. Hit the nail on the head. What he did say is true. When you want to use military vehicles and stuff, you have to get the approval from military. And the military does have a hand in the types of movies that are put out, okay, to the West. On the contrary, we can see that new film industries have developed all over the world in recent decades, especially in South Korea and China, both of which are becoming cultural titans in their own right. Consumers in the Asian market do not have to succumb to the recycled American garbage anymore because they've reached parity with Hollywood and less encumbered by the not so ideal material conditions in the States, and have the creative freedom to make things suitable for their respective audiences. This is where Black Americans, okay, fall short. You stop crying to the White Actors Guild for Oscars. That's disgusting. Look what's said here. South Korea and China are making their own movies. They have their own movie industry. Okay? And they're making something out of themselves. Now, I could say possibly, to try and do that here, you may face a Black Wall Street situation. I feel it. I sense it. There's nothing wrong with what I said with that, to just make that assumption. Because if it really takes off, you're going to have saboteurs. So this is not about race particularly. There are certain people who have said nasty things about Halle Berry, which defies the most basic logic, since mermaids are mythical creatures and can't be portrayed in any way one imagines. This is obviously regrettable, but just because those voices are prominent does not mean they are the majority. The reality is that folks in Asia and, of course, all over the world don't want to keep replaying the same thing over and over again. Can you really blame them for that? Hollywood should try creating new and imaginative intellectual properties that people around the world might identify with. Yep. That's the thing, but they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because there is an agenda to push. Okay? There's a big agenda to push in Hollywood. And that is basically to brainwash people with woke. Well, I wouldn't call it woke because it's not woke. It's just basically a liberal fascist agenda. It's basically what it is. Okay? Here's another article I wanted to read. Guess who's trying to buy Netflix? Okay. Here we go. India's richest man seeks to challenge Disney and Netflix. Mukesh Ambani's streaming service has been winning over viewers in its homeland. India's Jio Cinema streaming platform has broken the world record for the most viewed live stream event. Experts say the service, owned by billionaire Mukesh Ambani, could shake up global players such as Netflix, Disney, and Amazon, which currently dominate the Indian market. The platform reportedly drew more than 32 million simultaneous viewers for this week final of the 16th edition of the Indian Premier League IPL cricket tournament. Disney Plus Hotstar previously held the rights to stream the matches. According to reports, Jio Cinema's parent company, Viacom 18, paid 237 billion rupees, 2.8 billion, for IPL, Premier League, and an Indian Premier League streaming rights from 2023 to 2027, but decided to broadcast matches free of charge this year in a bid to attract more viewers. In April, the company's studio arm announced it would be spending for 240 million to produce more than 100 movies and TV shows in Indian languages. Jio Cinema has become the biggest platform for live sports. We are now on a mission to build the the most magnetic destination for entertainment for all Indians. The head of Viacom 18, Farzad Alia, was quoted as saying by the Straits Times. Last week, Viacom 18 clinched a deal with NBC Universal Media for the content from Universal Television, Sky Studios, and DreamWorks Animation. Entertainment content will be available on GL Cinema Premium, a paid subscription service launched last month. India's streaming market is growing rapidly and has enormous potential in a country of more than 1.4 billion people with an expanding middle class and rising internet use, an analysis said. The streaming and video on demand sector is projected to be more than a double to 5.3 billion by 2027, up from 2.35 billion last year, according to a report by consultancy Deloitte. Industry estimates show that Disney Plus Hotstar has about 53 million paid subscribers in India, while Amazon Prime Video has around 19 million and Netflix about 8 million. According to the Straits Times, Jio Cinema has an average in the form of Reliance Industries, also controlled by Ambani, which dominates India's mobile and broadband markets. Streaming platforms in India mostly tie up their subscriptions with mobile or broadband plans. Reliance Jio, the telecoms arm of Reliance Industries, has more than 7 million wired broadband subscribers and 473 million mobile subscribers. The company recently halved the price of its cheapest broadband plan to coincide with the start of the Indian Players League IPL season. A recent report by Media Partners Asia has suggested that Jio Cinema could be a challenger in India's streaming market as the platform has increased its investment in local content, premium international content, setting the stage for the growth of its premier tier. With an estimated net worth of over 80 billion, Ambani is the richest person in Asia and was ranked 9th in Forbes World Billionaires list 2023. Okay. So that's what's happening now, man. That is what's happening. I mean, Netflix is about to fall off. Okay. And you might be wondering, why is that? Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at why it's about to fall off. Let's see about that. Okay, fair use. Let's go. 1 second. 1 second here. Okay. Okay.
Happened to Netflix in 2018?
Fair use, by the way, fair use.
What happened to Netflix? In 2018, everyone had Netflix, but now Netflix is losing thousands of subscribers per day. The answer lies in a secret known only to a few. Netflix was started by a largely unsuccessful software developer named Reed Hastings. Reed was jealous of Jeff Bezos' huge success with Amazon. He wanted rich people to invest billions in Netflix the same way they were pouring money into Amazon. But there was a problem. Big investors would only buy Netflix stock if it had a high ESG score. ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Corporate Governance. It is sometimes referred to as the woke score. Reed had Netflix make more socially liberal shows to get...
And that's why I was wondering why they had cuties. This is why they had cuties on. That nasty show. Let's keep going.
A high ESG score and attract huge investors. But people didn't like it. And in 2021, Netflix began to fail. Netflix expects to lose more than 2 million subscribers in the next few months.
All right. Wow. And that's the reason why Netflix doesn't have much on. The woke mafia. So this guy, the owner of Netflix, cut off his nose to spite his face. And that's why the competition is about to gobble up Netflix. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about Daniel Penny. He has to say his side about what went on when he had to deal with Jordan Neely.
East Village in Manhattan, so I take the subway multiple times a day. In this instance, I was coming from school. I got out of class around 2:15, and I took the I was at J Street Metro Tech, took the Uptown F train. At Second Avenue, a man came on, stumbled on. He appeared to be on drugs. The doors closed, and he ripped his jacket off and threw it at the people sitting down to my left. I was listening to music at the time, and he was yelling, so I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling. And the three main threats that he repeated over and over was, "I'm gonna kill you, I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die." You know, this was a scary situation, and Mr. Neely came on. He was threatening. I'm 6'2", and he was taller than me, so it was. And there's a common misconception that Marines don't get scared. We're actually taught one of our core values is courage, and courage is not the absence of fear, but how you handle fear. And, you know, I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect. We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him, and the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hole to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting. And I was trying to keep him on the ground until the police came. I was praying that the police would come and take this situation over. I didn't want to be put in that situation, but I couldn't just sit still and let him carry out these threats.
You heard it right here. People will get mad. I'm on Daniel Penny's side. People will get mad at you, look at you funny, especially if you're a black person. You dare not follow the narrative. You dare not follow this narrative. We've worked so hard with white supremacy to make you black people look like animals, to make you look like victims. How dare you not take it on? I don't have to. I look at facts and evidence. That's what I have to look about. I have to look into facts and evidence. Are there times where there are hate crimes? Yes. Okay. Yes, there are. All right. But that's not every time a black man's life or a black woman's life is taken. Okay. It's not that way. And for some reason, when you dare speak out and tell the truth, that sometimes there are people, whether you're black, you're white, male, female, that they cause their own deaths depending on the choices they make in life. Okay? Just like when it came to Corin Gaines, all right, who was involved with a drug dealer who had a warrant out for his arrest. And I know a lot of women, a lot of black women were, when she passed away during an incident, right? Because she was involved with a drug dealer. Her boyfriend was a drug dealer. And get this, did her boyfriend, who was a drug dealer, stand by her side and just said, "Yo, baby, take the kids and go. I'll just be here for the cops, the SWAT team, and I'll just go along." No, he didn't give a damn about her. He went off and took his kid from another relationship, from a previous relationship, and went out the door. You know what she did? She decided to take a gun, a shotgun, while holding her young son in her arms and aim it at one of the SWAT team, law enforcement cops. And they had to defend themselves. And they shot her and she died. Her son lived, though. They got a settlement. Okay. But what does that do? She put herself in that position. Corin Gaines put herself in that position. Okay. And she lost her life because she picked a man she had no business picking. I knew you were here to blame a black woman. I knew you were going to do that. Look at you, putting all the responsibility. It's about choices. I don't know how to get that through to some black people, because there are black people who see that, hey, it's true. If you're going to, your choices have an outcome and how your life will turn out. Jordan Neely, okay, has a rap sheet, and he had a pending case. Before he died, he had a pending case in which he beat up a senior citizen, an old lady, somebody's grandmother, somebody's mother. Nobody looking at that. I was looking at a report, possibly, is it true? I don't know, that he possibly tried to abduct a 7-year-old girl. I still try to find more information on that. But the man has over 40 arrests. There's something wrong here. And he tried to turn himself in to get help to Bellevue Hospital, and Bellevue turned him away. New York City has a horrible track record in dealing with the mentally ill in this city. Have you any idea how many people have been pushed on train car tracks? Have you any idea how many times that has happened? After the Daniel Penny Jordan Neely incident, a man pushed a woman onto train tracks. She's in critical condition, fighting for her life. New York City has always been slack when it comes to protecting New Yorkers. It's always been slack. It's been that way. Unless they let a problem get out of hand where someone's harmed and they're really connected financially to somebody close. And that's when actual justice happens. Other than that, nothing really happens to the mentally ill. And it's sad to say, not only in New York City, but also in other states, liberal states. I'm not going to mention what I read about what happened to a war. I think it was in Boston or Philadelphia on a train, and nobody wanted to help her. They were too afraid. They needed a Daniel Penny that day. They need people. And as much as this feminist crap they push that men and women are equal, no, they're not. And you need protection. And the Democrats are not helping in this situation. They're making it to a point that if you dare try to help, you are going to jail. And for some of us men, look, we may risk that if we see our loved one about to be attacked. And I'm gonna tell you this: if my loved one was on the same train as Jordan Neely and Daniel Penny, I want Daniel Penny to step up and protect my loved one. Whether it's, let's say my family, a loved one of my family, a close relative, I want Daniel Penny there to subdue that man. I don't care if he's black, white. I don't care. Black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian. I don't care. Someone help my loved one that I can't reach to. We got to stop letting these mainstream medias brainwash us with these narratives. We got to look at the facts and look at the evidence. And after that, we make a judgment call based on the legitimate facts and evidence. Penny was charged with second-degree manslaughter in the death of Jordan Neely on the subway in Soho. CBS 2's Zina Maldonado has more of what he has to say. Let's see here. All right. I can't believe this is loading still. All right, here we are. Okay, great. Sorry about that, guys. A little technical difficulty. All right, here we are. We're back. All right, cool. Daniel Penny's lawyer released four short video clips over the weekend, giving the Marine veteran's side of the story in the deadly subway chokehold incident on May 1st. His lawyer said the grand jury is weighing evidence on whether to indict Penny on second-degree manslaughter. Perry reiterated his claim that he placed Jordan Neely in a fatal chokehold out of self-defense. The three main threats he repeated over and over: "I'm going to kill you. I'm prepared to go to jail, and I'm willing to die," Penny said. "I knew I had to act. I acted in a way that would protect other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I knew this chokehold to place my hand on top of his head, his chest rising and falling. He was still breathing." Penny said he had held Neely in the chokehold for less than 5 minutes, not for 15 minutes, as a witness who recorded the deadly encounter he had claimed. The video posted online was only a few minutes long. Penny also maintained that what happened inside the Manhattan subway car had nothing to do with race. I didn't see a black man threatening people. I saw a man threatening passengers. A lot of them people of color. Penny's lawyer said the 24-year-old male made a video statements not because of the grand jury, but because he wanted to set the record straight. If the misconceptions remain out there too long, it becomes part of people's memory of this case, said Penny's attorney, Steve Razor. Neely's family attorneys disagrees with Marine veterans' narrative of what happened. Daniel Penny wasn't attacked. He wasn't hit. He put Neely in a chokehold. He came up from behind, and he didn't let Jordan go for 15 minutes, attorney Dontel Mills said. While speaking at Neely's funeral, the Reverend Al Sharpton had this to say: "A good Samaritan helps those in trouble. They don't choke them out." Man, please. Al Sharpton is sickening, all right? That's what he is. He is sickening because he knows, like I said, most of these, left-wing race baiters know if they had a loved one there in that train car, when Jordan Neely's acting out, they would want a Daniel Penny to be there to restrain him. It's unfortunate what happened to Jordan Neely, but a lot of people failed him, especially his family. You knew he was having a mental breakdown since he was 14 after he witnessed his mother being murdered. Okay? The fault is at your feet. I don't want to hear, oh, he's old enough. No. You guys should have stepped up to the plate and handled business. That's what you guys should have done. Now, Jordan Neely's passed away. And now we're in this situation because you guys didn't handle it when he was 14 years of age. And Bellevue Hospital needs to be sued massively. How many other people did try to come to commit themselves to Bellevue Hospital, got turned away from Bellevue, and end up threatening passengers or end up doing a heinous crime? How many of these people were like Jordan Neely and had a rap sheet a mile long, but they were trying to commit themselves to a hospital to help them, a mental health facility? How many has New York City dropped the ball on? That's what we need to know. Because there are plenty of dead loved ones who wish they had a Daniel Penny to help them before they were taken out by a neglected mental health person. You don't live in New York, man. A lot of people making these assumptions, saying that, oh, man, it's racism. Oh, man. And I'm not a right-winger. I'm not a Democrat, and I'm not a right-winger. I just see that people are just spouting off and not really getting the facts, not really understanding that this isn't about race. This was a mental health issue, and Daniel Penny prevented Jordan Neely from doing something. This man beat up an old woman. I understand there's hate crimes, but this isn't a hate crime. This was not a hate crime. This was the city and the loved ones of a mentally ill that failed Jordan Neely. That's what I see here. Nothing more, nothing less. Speaking about people who have failed, especially the mainstream media, look at the nonsense they're doing to fail us once again. MSNBC segment falsely claims parent organizations are hate groups. MSNBC's Deadline, White House, one of the network's top-rated shows, fully leaned into its divisive view of conservatives Tuesday by touting as fact a report from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which proclaimed without evidence that parental rights groups are hate groups. Yeah, I'm losing a lot of respect for for the Southern Poverty Law Center. Host Nicole Wallace huffed through multiple readings of the report, calling parents concerned about racially divisive and sexually explicit content presented to young children as reactionary anti-student inclusion groups and akin to January 6 rioters. She added to another point that such groups and women speaking out against biological men in sports as targeting, maligning, and threatening kids. For good measure, the head of the Southern Poverty Law Center added her own thoughts about these terrifying individuals who, while former FBI officials and MSNBC contributor Frank Figliuzzi called parental rights and female sports advocates reminiscent of the... Are you serious? Are we really going here right now? Reminiscent of the Ku Klux Klan? Seriously? The Southern Poverty Law Center's report attacked Moms for Liberty and Parents Defending Education coalition of parents seeking to review their child's education and referred to them as anti-government extremists, insiders, and domestic violence and hate group. Host Nicole Wallace said the report was rooted on research and data, portrayed its contents as fact, including this excerpt. Reactionary anti-student inclusion groups such as Moms for Liberty, Moms for America, and Parents Defending Education that the Southern Poverty Law Center lists as extremist groups are, by their nature, responding to social progress that they dislike and have no control over. Like many other hard right groups, these reactionary anti-student inclusion groups are constantly painting themselves as oppressed class while vilifying those discriminated against. Wallace welcomed Southern Poverty Law Center president and CEO Margaret Hung as a hero for her work on the report. Hung rebuked Moms for Liberty for pushing to ban certain books, ban curricula, punish teachers who talk about inclusion education, and generally make our school boards miserable in seeking to provide an inclusion education for all. She describes their efforts as terrifying to children and detrimental to their well-being. Really? Have you asked them? As she spoke, the headlines breaking news reports schools are primary target for locally driven extremist mobilization ran across the scene. Yeah. Yeah. You see, what these groups that are against parents actually trying to protect their kids, what they're not telling you is the fact of what's in those books. Okay? They're not telling you what's in those books. Matter of fact, they won't even dare to read it out loud. That's another thing, too. They will not read out loud the disgusting, despicable acts that they want to expose your children to. They won't read that. I can't even show most of the stuff that I would show a video showing what the type of nonsense they want your child to learn in these types of books. But I'll tell you, it's disgusting. It's extremely gross and disgusting. And you would want these teachers ran out of public education. Okay? You'd want them ran right out of it. Because they're trying to sexualize and have a right to molest your children. That's what they want. That's the bottom line. Frank Figliuzzi even compared groups on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list to the KKK. He claimed that these groups adopted the KKK tactics to infiltrate schools and force their hate-filled agenda on unsuspecting citizens, he said. But I hearken back to the decades ago when the FBI and the Department of Justice really aggressively targeted and successfully went after criminally the KKK. And what happened? They took off their hoods and their sheets and put on suits and ties. They went local and they ran for office. So this isn't the first time we've seen this going local mainstreaming of hatred. You mean like the fact that you guys were pedophiles and rapists and and you tried to have NAMBLA, National American Men Boy Lovers Association. You tried to parade for your right to have relations with children, with underage children. And the fact that crowds of people, whether they were Catholic priests, whether they were black, whether they were white, whether they were Buddhist, whether they were Christian, they all band together and dog walked you all. So instead of making parades, you decided to put on suits, find ways to get degrees and get into certain positions of power where you can start legislating the right slowly but surely to molest kids. Sure you're not doing the same thing? Right. The League rejects parents' concern about the curriculum, viewing such attempts at influence as manipulative tactics to promote hate. Activists have made a concentrated effort to organize in the local arena, pursuing their agenda in venues where it's easier to gain power. Wallace read from the report, 2022, the hard right movement succeeded in burrowing deeper in the people's lives in visible and material ways, even if it did not have widespread electoral success. Its fingerprints are everywhere: people's homes, schools, doctors' offices, libraries, bars, restaurants, churches, and other community spaces. At no point did MSNBC offer a counterpoint to Hong and its panels of accusations against the conservative parental groups. Instead, they presented the Sovereign Poverty Law Center's harsh accusations as objective and factual. They willingly labeled involved parents as members of a hate group and reminiscent of the KKK. Unfortunately, there seems to be no bottom at MSNBC. Yep. Pretty much. Very low standards. So low, it's in hell. The devil's practically bench pressing the bar. Okay? It's bad it is. That's how bad it is. All right. So let's talk about these arrests that were made. A fight broke out at a Glendale school board meeting. Let's talk about that. One second, sorry.
Now at 11, clashes, chaos, and arrests outside a Glendale school board meeting. Good evening, I'm Micah Olden.
And I'm Cher Calvin. Tempers flare as protesters face off over how schools teach gender and sexuality in class, leading to fistfights, shouting matches, and arrests.
The chaos coming on the same day America's largest LGBTQ organization declares a national state of emergency for the first time ever. Sky 5 was over the scene as police moved in to arrest one of the protesters. Officers are seen pushing the crowd back as they take the man into custody. It was just one of many tense moments fueled by the issue of pride in schools.
KTLA 5's John Finolio is live in Glendale tonight with a look at what fueled the outrage. John.
Sure, Micah, all clear now, but earlier today, that's right, what a mess out here. Hundreds of people swarmed the parking lot here outside the Glendale Unified School District Board meeting. Some of them did get violent, and police arrested 3 people after fights broke out, and some refused police orders to disperse. Those inside the school board meeting were told to shelter in place until the crowds could be cleared out. All this over the inclusion of LGBTQ studies in the classroom. Fists fly outside a Glendale Unified School District Board meeting. Pro and anti-LGBTQ plus protesters clashing over the school board's plan to adopt a resolution designating June as LGBT Pride Month, something they've done since 2019.
We are fighting for the rights of those children who don't want to be indoctrinated.
Those opposed to recognizing LGBTQ plus issues in schools and conservative groups say California's curriculum, which is what Glendale Unified follows, on LGBTQ plus issues is not appropriate for children.
We're talking about children. We're not ready for such choices. It confuses them. And ultimately, these are things that parents should decide.
The superintendent says there is simply no agenda and that a lot of protesters are being fed misinformation.
Our primary focus in our school district is to be inclusive. Every student matters, every family member matters. We do follow in a public system state laws and California Department of Education guidelines. And sometimes that may be of concern to some parents. But at the end of the day, my message is let's reach out to one another.
Advocates say that LGBTQ plus representation is especially important in schools, insisting that being an LGBTQ plus person is not a choice.
We're here, all of us belong in this education. All of us need to be represented.
The folks on the other side say they are not homophobic. Do you believe them?
No, not at all. I've seen their website. I've seen the things that they say.
Carrie Vargas is a Glendale Unified teacher and parent.
No one's handing us a curriculum and saying you have to teach kids to be gay. Like I don't even understand. I don't think they know what they're talking about.
She's lying. She is lying. If she looked at those books and see what's in those books, man, I know she knows what's in those books. I know that she knows that. And she's pulling it off. Wow. This is why I can't knock Uganda. Uganda is doing what they have to do to protect their nation and their people from this nonsense. Russia is doing what they got to do to protect their people and its nation from this nonsense.
And we don't have any prescribed LGBTQ plus curriculum. We just don't leave gay people out of the equation.
In response to anti-LGBTQ plus demonstrators, Glendale Unified has issued a fact sheet and statement spelling out exactly what is taught in the classroom when it comes to recognizing LGBT people.
Okay. Let me see if I could get away with something here. Let's see. One second. All right. One second, right here. Volume low right here, right now. Just 1 minute. All right, I'm going to try something out. All right, I'm going to let this person talk. See right here. Okay. I'm not going to show their face, anything like that, but I'm going to let them talk. That's what I'm going to do. Here I go. Jack Cousteau. Here we go. See, it talks about the ins and out of alphabet sex. That's right. You're going to give this to middle schoolers. Yeah, they talk about how to give a blowjob. They're talking about part one, boy on boy, you know what. This is what you're going to give to 11, 12, and 13-year-old to read. And you're teaching middle schoolers how to use a sex app. And now we have all these definitions that they want your 11 and 12-year-old to learn. This is what they want you to learn. Rimming, licking the bum. Scat, eating the brown stuff. Scissors, that's just a position. That's right, a position they want your middle schooler to learn. And to learn about STIs and a strap on. Once again, I'm on Uganda's side 1,000%. They want to make an anti-rainbow bill. I'm all for it. Because in America, we going to hell. And what is this? P.S. A bit of spit, Brokeback Mountain style, is not a substitute for proper wow. Wow. There you have it. There you freaking have it. Okay? Wow. Speechless, man. I'm really just speechless. And the sad thing that kills me is like you have black people who think this is totally fine. This is all right. How does this affect your life? It affects my life because they're going to come for your kids. That's what they're trying to do. They come in for your kids. They're coming for the black community. All right? Don't you see them trying to compete for civil rights? Okay? Trying to compete. They get more whenever blacks ask for something, like reparations, they can't get it. The alphabet group asks for something, they get it. And they're right under the black people saying, "Oh, we're oppressed just like you." That's why they hopped on the bandwagon in the 60s for the civil rights. They hopped on that bandwagon because they saw what they could get. They knew they probably knew at the time that both Democrat and Republican don't like black people, but we know we could get rights because you know they're whites in the alphabet community, and they'll get first dibs. Okay. All right. Let's talk about Mel Gibson's new movie. All right. Fair use. Fair use. Oh no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot. I forgot this one clip I wanted to show. Now, yeah. All his endorsements gone, man. All of his endorsements gone.
I didn't like what I was seeing, man. I saw parents brawling in front of a fucking school with kids. You know, I'm sure a lot of you guys can understand how that video would piss some people off. It pissed me off. Okay, brand new father. You know, we seeing these kinds of videos. It's sad. You know, but her and I agree that we want to be the ones to talk to our kid about things like that. I'm trying to keep it really simple, just so we don't have to get too crazy about it, because there's nothing to get crazy about. I think I just have a bigger perspective on this now, being a parent, than I did maybe 2 months ago. So, you know, the video bothered me, and that's I just don't think it's any place for a teacher or a school. I don't think it's the place to speak about things like that.
This is Huge Nick Merckx. He's a streamer. He was in the Call of Duty community, and they made a model after him, like what they would call in gamer terms a skin. But he lost that all because he said that they need to keep the kids out of these issues, referring to the alphabet. You know, with the brawl that happened between parents and the teachers who are supporting the rainbow, these rainbow books. Okay. And he loses endorsements. He gets a backlash of tweets because all he said was to keep the kids out of it. And like I said before, they're telling on themselves when they do these type of things, when they react to simple tweets like just keep the kids out of it, because alphabet people need straight people to make more alphabet people. And that's why they're coming for the next generation, which is your children. Always let people talk and say what they want. Let the actions speak for you, and that tells you who they are. And Rainbow Agenda is telling you who they are. They want your kids. They don't give a damn about right and wrong. They want the right to do what they want to do. They're tired of hiding in the shadows. They're tired of hiding because they know if they come out and try to do that crap, they're going to get the wrath of Almighty God on their neck. So they're tired of it, and they want to be accepted for who they are, which is monsters. All right. Let's go into Mel Gibson's movie now. All right. Okay. Fair use.
His life after vowing to expose an elite paedophile ring operating at the heart of the Hollywood system. According to Gibson, Hollywood elites have already tried to cancel him, silence him, and destroy his career, none of which worked because we, the people, understand that he's telling the truth. Mel Gibson enraged the establishment in 2017 by going on the record and denouncing Hollywood as a den of parasites who feed on the blood of kids. The mainstream media quickly pounced on Gibson's revelations, deployed fact-checkers including Snopes to declare the comments fake news, and proceeded to delete every video and article from the internet. Orwell warned us that in the future, the elites would memory hole inconvenient information, and that's exactly what the elites did with Gibson's revelations about Hollywood. In short, Mel Gibson's voice was silenced. Now, 6 years later, Mel Gibson has now declared that he has nothing left to lose, and he is determined to play his part in eradicating the evil of elite paedophilia and child trafficking. Job as a special agent with Homeland Security investigations. Early reports indicate that the film exposes VIP pedophilia and child trafficking. Tim Ballard recently told a crowd at the Utah Eagle Forum 2023 annual convention that the 4-part docuseries, executive produced by Tony Robbins, was nearing completion. He also revealed that Gibson had dedicated...
I got a problem with people who wave that Ukrainian flag. I really do. That flag is about, look, they support white supremacy, man. It's neo-Nazis, man. I see that Ukrainian flag, I'm like,
his life to saving children from elite pedophiles.
Got a phone call from Mel Gibson. He actually did the final edit of The Sound of Freedom. That's how we know each other, but not well enough that I'd be getting phone calls. And he told me that he was in Budapest at the time. This was right hours after the invasion. And he said he supports a bunch of orphans in Ukraine and he was worried about them. And he asked if I could help get them out. So now I've got 12 from my wife. I got about 13 others from Mel Gibson. And I'm thinking, okay, I got this list of kids I got to get out. I told Mel, I said, you got to help me. This is going to be expensive. I won't ask you for direct donation, but can you help me film this? You know, let's film what's happening so we can get people to understand and they can support us. He said, no problem. He helped us get set up and started filming. 4 months later, what I thought was going to be maybe a documentary about Ukraine ends up being a 4-part docuseries that's almost done. It's being produced by DNA Films and executive produced by Tony Robbins. That's how crazy it got and how prophetic my wife was. When I showed up in Ukraine with a list of, I think, 20 names, the Ukrainians countered me and gave me over 10,000 names of orphans that they didn't know where they were because of the chaos caused by war. And more importantly, and more frightening to me, was the fact that I know that human trafficking is a $32 billion a year business. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. And I also know how kids get forced into that market. And it's through vulnerable situations like in the aftermath of a hurricane, mostly in a developed country, or an earthquake, or in this case, a war. And so the traffickers call it harvest time. And that was the intel we were getting. And so we weren't just there to extract those kids, but look for leads. And it really was a miracle what happened. You know, it's one of these things that, you know, faith precedes the miracle. I take a lot of comfort in the fact that there's only one time in the scripture where Jesus gets mafioso. It's righteous because it's Jesus doing it. But if you listen to his words, it's mafioso. He says that it would be better for you to have a millstone cast about your neck and you thrown to the bottom of the sea than that you would hurt one of these little ones, my children. That's mafioso action, sinking someone to the bottom of the ocean. And Jesus said it. So I know where he stands on it, so I can expect, and we can expect, miracles when we're fighting to protect children.
The mainstream media are terrified of Gibson's new role, and now they are doing everything they can to mislead the masses. According to fact checkers, Mel Gibson isn't involved in The Sound of Freedom at all. They are even claiming that he has denied his involvement through an unnamed anonymous source, of course. Why are they lying so blatantly about Gibson's role in The Sound of Freedom? Because they are terrified of what he's going to expose. According to Gibson, they are running cover for the dark forces who are determined to silence him. They are so determined to silence him and suppress the film, they don't want the mainstream audience to have any idea that the film exists at all. After this quick break, we will look at why the elite are so terrified by Gibson's new direction, them falling into the hands of predators who traffic them through paedophilia networks where the children suffer unimaginable horrors. Sex trafficking, especially when it comes to the buying and selling of young girls, has become big business in America. In 2011, it was the fastest growing business in organised crime, and the second most lucrative commodity traded illegally after drugs and guns. Consider this: every 2 minutes, a child is exploited in the sex industry. As investigative journalist Amy Fine Collins notes, it's become more lucrative and much safer to sell malleable teens than drugs or guns. A pound of heroin or an AK-47 can be retailed once, but a young girl can be sold 10 to 15 times a day, and a righteous pimp confiscates 100% of her earnings.
A righteous pimp? What the hell? Wow.
As Ernie Allen of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children points out, the only way not to find this in an American city is simply not to look for it. Where did this appetite for young children come from? Look around you. Children have been sexualized for years now in music videos, on billboards, in TV ads, and in clothing stores like Target. Marketeers have created a demand for young flesh and a ready supply of hypersexualized children. As Hollywood veteran James
I'm gonna throw up. I really want to throw up.
Wood said this week, Hollywood is 100 times more evil than your worst fears. And Hollywood, as Gibson has always known, is at the heart of evil in this world.
When I came over here, I was in my mid-20s.
Right.
The first time I really came over here. You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me.
They don't.
And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be, because a whole place can't be like, you know, Weird Town, you know, where the stranger wanders in and all the people are in the bar and they all shut up when he looks at them and they tell you don't go into the house on the hill, and it's like that. And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. I mean, that's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? And then you find out later on the track that you were exactly on track with a lot of this stuff. Not specifically on track, but that you could, that some of your worst nightmares were real at the time, and you think, it does rip your life to pieces.
Does it?
If you'll let it.
Yeah.
And it's always pounding at the walls. It's these little guys, these little heathens with no soul downstairs with horns on their head with a battering ram trying to like beat your walls in.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take very long before you realize, or before it gets to you. It's cascading on you all the time. You can't get away from certain attitudes, from certain modes of behavior that this town and the industry dictate. And no matter how strong you are, when you come in off the farm with those convictions and a certain line of attack, no matter how strong you are going to be affected by this place. No, it's going to divert you from where you were going.
Sure.
You're going to be diverted. You'll eat yourself alive here. And I think it takes that kind of cockroach resilience to survive in this town.
Unlike most stars, Gibson was not seduced by the evil. Here he is years later, still refusing to buy into the evil system.
A gut full of the whole industry. I mean, it's a very strange place, Hollywood. But it's an odd place. And you imagine all these horror stories there that you think, boy, it seems as if I'm being sacrificed over here. No, that couldn't be true. And then you realize that it is true. And you have to, I just left for a while and took a couple of years off, bought a place down in Australia and started digging holes and putting up fences and birthing cattle and all this kind of stuff. And it was fun, you know, it was fun. It was great, and it was a good breather, you know.
Yeah.
After taking a breather, Gibson came back and decided he wasn't going to play by Hollywood's rules anymore. He defied the studio system and made the epic Passion of the Christ. And now he's doing it again by collaborating with Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel and making Sound of Freedom.
I'm pleading for my fellow countrymen to wake up to what is going on with what's happening to our children. Steve, April 26th, there was a woman named, I believe it was Ms. Rojas. She's a whistleblower. And God protect all our whistleblowers, because they're in serious danger right now for speaking the truth. And she got up and said that 85, this is sworn testimony, 85,000 children have gone missing crossing the border. So I'm going out right now to plead to the public, to the Christians out there, and to anybody that has a heart for a child. We may not even get to the resurrection of the Christ because we won't have a country anymore.
The entertainment industry and the mainstream media, working on behalf of the elites, are determined to keep the epidemic of paedophilia under wraps. They are determined to continue denying there is a problem here, despite the evidence of millions of children going missing every single year. Brave patriots like Mel Gibson, Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel are determined to bring this epidemic to light. There is no doubt the mainstream media will try to cancel Mel Gibson all over again.
A lot of kids went missing during the Biden administration. A lot unaccounted for. That, kind of chokes me up doing stories like this, pertaining to when the victims are children. I don't like it at all. I don't. Children are precious. They ain't done nothing wrong. And you have these monsters doing things to them. And you got two-party political system that is working to keep this horror train going. All right. You know what to do. Everything you want to know about this channel is in the description box. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please share this live stream. Okay, later.